2 years ago, I bought a second-hand treadmill from Facebook Marketplace. In this video, I'm going to look at why, how well it's performed, and in detail at the technicalities of my setup. I think this, combined with my approach to how I've dealt with keyboard ergonomics and the screen placement in my home office, is the final piece of the puzzle to working with computers while staying injury-free, promoting as many health benefits as possible, and equally importantly, creating a kind of state of mental flow that's conducive to productivity while we're working with computers. And this is all done in a way that I don't think is possible with a normal sitting desk or even a standing desk. The health risks associated with sitting down and sedentary lifestyles are far-reaching and very well documented. We're looking at an increase in mortality rates, cancer, cardiovascular disease, blood pressure, insulin sensitivity, and a whole bunch of other issues. So what about standing desks? I think it's fair to say that they can improve on things compared to just sitting down, but we've still got this massive issue of varicose veins, and this applies to sitting or standing, and it's as a result of lack of activity resulting in blood pooling in the veins. If you're new here, I'm a software developer and I work on a product called SetSeed CMS. So I want to work with computers productively. I want to increase the time I spend working productively on computers, not decrease it. So I'm really keen on finding the best way of working with computers in a way that doesn't result in any kind of accumulative health problems. So we can rule out sitting and standing, and I think we can rule out cycling desks as well, just because they're going to be so awkward if you can't actually lean on a handlebar because of the keyboard. So that leaves us looking at treadmill desks. And this is fascinating because obviously your first impressions with this is how can you possibly work on a computer typing whilst walking on a treadmill? The reality is it's totally feasible. Even with my hover typing setup here where I don't have any wrist rest at all, it's absolutely possible for me to type very fast and comfortably whilst walking on this treadmill. So if you look into the benefits of actually just walking in general, the science is absolutely packed full of really interesting studies that link walking with all kinds of health benefits, including metabolism and digestion, mental health, and of course all of the things that the sedentary lifestyle contributes to are mitigated by walking: cardiovascular disease, blood pressure and circulation, all of this stuff. So it's pretty obvious that walking is a positive thing, and if we can combine this with working with computers, I think we're really onto something. So then of course there's this idea that walking itself is actually beneficial in real time for things like problem solving and idea creation, and I think anyone who's kind of had their best ideas while taking a stroll can attest to this. So I've definitely found working on a treadmill to be extremely beneficial. I do get this idea that walking, it does promote this sense of positive engagement with my work and increases my focus and flow. And that's absolutely fantastic. And then I know that I'm getting all of these health benefits associated with walking instead of being still and sedentary as well. So over 2 years, I've used this as my primary way of working with computers. And I really do feel that walking with this sense of rhythm and movement is a great way of promoting a sort of sense of flow and inspiration while I'm working with the computer in a way that just doesn't happen if you're sat or standing still. So let's look at some of the technical considerations associated with how I've actually set up this treadmill desk. And the first thing I want to talk about is the noise. So obviously I'm using essentially a fitness treadmill here. It's not designed for an office environment and it is quite loud. But the simple solution here is just to use noise cancelling headphones. The sound that treadmills make is a very easy sound, or it seems to be a very easy sound for noise cancelling headphones to cut out. So I can just whack on the AirPods Max, push the button, and the sound just completely disappears. And that's actually really, really cool because you feel like you're still walking and you know there's this machine facilitating this kind of walking, but you can't hear it. And of course, if you're playing a bit of music through your headphones as well, that effect is completed. And it's a really, really fantastic experience. The other interesting thing about using a fitness treadmill like this is there's a really logical space for an iPad to sit just on this little shelf in front of you. And that sits below your field of view on your main screen that you have further back. And the interesting thing about that is, of course, because the angle is lower, your resting point of vergence, which I've looked at in a previous video, is actually nearer. So because your eye angle drops down, it's less fatiguing at this closer distance. So this works really well as a quick way of just getting an extra extension display to your main working environment. If you're on a Mac, the iPad has this incredibly seamless wireless kind of extension of the main desktop process where you can just move the mouse straight down into your iPad. Works really well. It's just a kind of a nice, excellent use of this kind of fitness treadmill. So next we're going to look at keyboards. Now obviously I've done a lot of work with keyboards and I've kind of I think really optimized the experience of working with keyboards on computers. And the way I've done that is by having an extreme tent on a split keyboard. So the two halves of the keyboard are like this in front of me. And the simple way that I've got this set up is I've just literally got a piece of wood strapped onto the handles of the treadmill. And then I use these little magic arm clamps with the tripod adapters to hold the two halves of the keyboard to this piece of wood. And I can adjust them to get that position just right. It's super easy to get this in an incredibly comfortable position. And interestingly, the height of this board based on the handles is absolutely perfect for the angle that I find the most comfortable when I'm standing working with the keyboard like this. I've kind of got my elbows slightly open, my hands are dropping slightly into a very neutral position, my wrist extension is very neutral, and the tenting of the keyboard just means my forearm rotation feels absolutely comfortable. I can type like this all day, and of course, because I'm not using any wrist rest, I'm not getting any weird pressure or anything on the nerves in my wrists here either. So the next thing to consider is the implication on the display that you use. So if you're using an existing standing desk and you want to upgrade to a treadmill desk, you're going to need to get a treadmill that doesn't have the stand and handles in front so that you can use your desk for your keyboard and mouse and display. But if you want to reuse just a cheap fitness treadmill like I have, you kind of have to rethink things and use the handles for the keyboard and then have a bigger screen further away. And I actually use that setup in here with a 55-inch TV as my computer screen, and I actually find that to be incredibly beneficial in terms of eye strain as well. And I've done another video looking in much more detail at that screen setup. So it's important to actually talk about just the effort involved. If we're talking about working a full day on a computer, standing and walking, it's actually a lot of effort. There's no way I can keep this up the whole day long. This is not on all day. I do turn it off and I just use it like a more traditional standing desk for those periods. And I think that's absolutely fine. You know, all the evidence associated with the benefits of walking show that even small amounts of walking each day is enough to get those benefits. So I'm not concerned on that level, but it is interesting to note just how much effort is involved with using this. And of course, sometimes I'll feel that standing is tiring and I want to actually just take some weight off my feet. So in that case, what I do is just jump on this really awful, uncomfortable, kind of wobbly chair because I just don't want to obviously find it so comfortable that I don't then get back up. So, you know, I can probably stand about half an hour to an hour sat down on this chair before I feel like I want to stand back up again anyway, because it's so uncomfortable. I think that's quite a nice way of looking at this, that you want to kind of encourage yourself to put yourself through the additional effort of standing and walking so that we can get those health benefits. So in terms of cost, this whole thing's actually really affordable. Obviously, if you're looking at a second-hand fitness treadmill, these things are super cheap. They're so big and heavy that it's actually really difficult for people to get rid of them. So you can get them for hardly any money at all. And if you can then work out how you're going to deal with your screen and keyboard because of the handles and stand in the front, if you solve that problem, it's a super affordable way of getting this amazing ergonomics and health benefits associated with working with computers. If you want to use an existing standing desk, then you might have to think in terms of getting a product that's designed to go underneath a desk that doesn't have the big handles and stand, something that's designed more for walking under a desk specifically, and that might put the price up a little bit more. But there are more and more of these things coming onto the market, so there are lots of options there. If you've enjoyed this video looking at how we can kind of really improve the health situation when we're working with these digital devices, you'll enjoy this one next, where I look at the really alarming situation with just how close we're being encouraged to use smartphones to our face and the issue that is in terms of eye health, especially for younger people. So check out that video and I'll see you there.